The discovery. Tom opened his eyes slowly, his head feeling heavy. The last thing he remembered was working at Joe's coffee shop, making lattes and serving muffins like any other normal day. But this was definitely not the coffee shop. He found himself lying on something that looked like a medical bed, but it glowed with a soft blue light. The walls around him were silver, with strange patterns that seemed to move like waves. This had to be a dream, he thought. But the cold metal under his fingers felt too real. "You are finally awake." The voice came from behind him. Tom turned around quickly. There she was, the strange woman from the coffee shop. But now he could see her clearly. She stood over 7 feet tall, her skin a light purple color with glowing marks that looked like stars across her arms. Her black armor made her look like a warrior from the future. Who are you?" Tom's voice shook a little. "Where am I?" The warrior woman walked closer, her movements graceful despite her size. "My name is Zara Vex. You are on my ship, currently passing the orbit of your moon." She spoke in perfect English, but her voice had a musical quality to it. Tom rushed to a nearby window. His legs felt weak as he saw the Earth below, looking like a blue marble in space. "This can't be real," he whispered. "It is very real, Tom Jenkins," Zara said. "And you are more important than you could ever imagine." She pressed a button on her arm guard, and a hologram appeared in the middle of the room. It showed strange symbols and what looked like DNA strands spinning in the air. "My people, the Stellarians, were once the most powerful race in the galaxy," she explained. "We were warriors, explorers, and builders of great things. But now we face extinction." The hologram changed to show her planet. A world with 3 moons and beautiful crystal cities. 1,000 years ago, a disease swept through our population. We survived, but it left us changed. We lost the ability to have male children. Each generation, our numbers grow smaller. Tom listened, his mind struggling to understand. "But what does this have to do with me?" Zara's eyes glowed slightly brighter. "Everything. You see, your species wasn't born by accident. Humans were created by my ancestors as a backup plan. They mixed their DNA with that of your planet's early life forms. They created humans to be compatible with our species, just in case we ever faced such a disaster." She walked closer to Tom, her expression serious, but also hopeful. "For the past 10 years, I have searched every human settlement in your solar system, scanning for someone with the right genetic pattern. Out of billions of humans, you are the only one whose DNA is a perfect match." Tom sat back down on the medical bed, feeling overwhelmed. "You're saying I'm some kind of key to saving your species?" "Yes," Zara nodded. "But you are also in danger now. Other alien races have learned about you. Some want to study you. Others want to make sure my people never regain our strength. That's why I had to take you so quickly. I'm sorry for frightening you." Suddenly, red lights started flashing throughout the room. A loud alarm began to sound. "Speaking of danger," Zara said, rushing to a control panel. Her fingers flew over the strange symbols. "We have company. 3 ships just appeared on our sensors. They're not friendly." Tom watched as she quickly pressed more buttons, and the ship's engine sound changed to a higher pitch. "What's happening?" "Those ships belong to the Cracksun," she replied, her voice grim. "They're biomechanical hunters who would love to get their tentacles on your DNA. But don't worry." She turned to him with a fierce smile, her hand moving to the weapon at her hip. "I am one of the best warriors of my people. No one will take you while I stand." The ship shuddered as something hit them. Tom gripped the edge of the medical bed, his heart racing. In just one day, his life had changed from serving coffee to being in the middle of a space battle. And somehow, he knew this was just the beginning of an adventure that would change not just his life, but the fate of an entire alien civilization. Zara's voice came firm and clear over the growing sounds of battle. "Stay close to me, Tom. This is about to get interesting." The journey home. The space battle ended as quickly as it had started. Tom watched in amazement as Zora's fingers danced across the glowing controls, making their ship move like a dancer between the enemy shots. The Kraxon ships, huge and covered in what looked like metal tentacles, fell behind as Zora activated what she called the Starstream drive. "Is it always like this?" Tom asked, still gripping the medical bed as streams of light flashed past the windows. Zora laughed, a sound like crystal bells. "Actually, this was a quiet day. Usually, I have to fight them hand to hand." She turned to look at him, her star-marked skin glowing softly in the dim light. "You should eat something. The kitchen unit can make food from your world." Tom followed her through corridors that seemed to breathe, the walls shifting colors with their movement. The kitchen wasn't what he expected. Instead of the sterile, spaceship look, it was cozy, with something like wooden tables and chairs that grew right out of the floor. "You're shipped," Tom said, touching one of the chairs. "It's alive, isn't it?" Very observant. Zora pressed her hand to a wall, and it pulsed with light. "This is a heart ship. They're grown, not built. She's been my companion for 10 years during the search." She looked at Tom with those glowing eyes. "She likes you. I can feel it through our bond." A small platform emerged from the wall, carrying what looked exactly like a cheeseburger and fries. Tom's stomach growled. He hadn't realized how hungry he was. "While you eat, I should explain more," Zora said, sitting across from him. She created some kind of holographic map above the table. "We're here, in what you call the Orion arm of the galaxy. My homeworld, Stellaris Prime, is here." She pointed to a spot that seemed impossibly far away. "It will take us 3 Earth weeks to reach it, even with the Starstream drive." Tom nearly choked on his burger. 3 weeks? "But my job, my apartment, my cat." "Your cat is being well cared for," Zora said quickly. "Before I approached you, I arranged everything. Your workplace thinks you want a surprise vacation. Your neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, is watching your cat. I left enough currency in your accounts to cover all expenses. You really planned everything, huh?" "I had to." "But," Zora's expression grew serious, "there's something else you need to know. We're not just running from the Kraxon. The galaxy. It's not as empty as your people think." The hologram changed, showing different alien species. Some looked almost human. Others were completely bizarre. Beings of pure energy, crystalline entities, and things Tom's mind could barely process. "Most advanced species know about Earth," Zora continued. "They've been watching, waiting. Some, like my people, helped shape human development. Others," she waved her hand, and the hologram showed massive ships hiding behind Mars and Jupiter. "Others have less noble intentions. They're all watching Earth right now. Yes, there's an ancient treaty that prevents direct interference with developing worlds. But you, Tom," she looked at him intently, "by leaving Earth willingly, you've created a loophole. Every species that wants to study human DNA, to unlock its potential, can now try to capture you. That's why we haven't traveled in a straight line to my homeworld." As if to emphasize her point, alarms started blaring again. But this time, they were different. Deeper, more urgent. "Zara?" Tom asked, worried. She jumped up, her armor expanding to cover more of her body. Multiple ships just appeared. Different species working together. "This is new." She grabbed his hand. "We need to reach the bridge. The next few hours will be challenging." They ran through the living corridors of the ship, which now pulsed with red warning lights. Through the windows, Tom could see them. A fleet of at least 20 ships, all different, all alien, all focused on them. "Remember what I said about quiet days?" Zara said, reaching the bridge and practically throwing herself into the pilot's seat. "I think those are over." The ship's walls transformed, becoming transparent and giving them a 360-degree view of space. They were surrounded. Ships of crystal, ships that looked like giant sea creatures, ships that hurt Tom's eyes to look at directly, all closing in. Zara's hands moved faster than human eyes could follow across the controls. "Tom," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos, "I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do, no one has ever survived it. That this ship is special, and you." She looked at him with something like affection. "You're special too." The ship's lights dimmed, and Tom felt a strange vibration through the floor. The wall behind him opened up, revealing what looked like a second pilot's chair. "The ship wants you to help," Zara said, surprised. This hasn't happened in 1,000 years, a heart ship choosing a second pilot. More alarms. The enemy ships were charging weapons. "I don't know how to fly a spaceship," Tom protested. "You don't have to know," Zara said. "Just sit in the chair. Let her in. Trust us both." Tom looked at the chair, then at the approaching fleet. Sometimes, he thought, the craziest choice is the only choice that makes sense. He sat down, and the world exploded into light and sensation as the heart ship connected with his mind. He could feel everything. The ships around them, the distant stars, and most surprisingly, Zara's presence, bright and fierce, like a supernova. "Ready?" she asked, both through the air and through their new mental connection. Tom gripped the organic controls that had formed under his hands. "Ready." Zara smiled, fierce and proud. "Then let's show them why they should fear the combined power of human and Stellarian." The ship's core began to pulse with energy, and Tom could feel something building. Something impossible, something that would change everything. The adventure wasn't just beginning, it was about to become legendary. The truth revealed. The impossible had happened. Together, Tom and Zara had guided the heart ship through what she called a quantum fold, essentially becoming energy for a brief moment to slip through the gaps between space itself. The enemy fleet was left behind, their weapons hitting empty space where Tom and Zara had been just seconds before. Now they drifted in a quiet sector of space, the heart ship's systems slowly recovering. The living vessel had wrapped them in a cocoon of softly glowing tendrils, healing itself while keeping them safe. Through his new connection to the ship, Tom could feel its exhaustion, but also its pride in their escape. "I've never seen anything like that," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. She stood by one of the ship's transparent walls, watching strange, bioluminescent creatures swim through the space around them. "No human has ever bonded with a heart ship before. You're full of surprises, Tom Jenkins." Tom was about to respond when something caught his eye. "What are those?" he asked, pointing to the space-swimming creatures. "Void whales," Zara explained. "They're ancient beings that live in the deep spaces between stars. They're drawn to heart ships. They recognize them as distant cousins." She paused, then turned to face him fully. "Which means, it's time you knew everything." The ship responded to her thoughts, creating a comfortable seating area where the bridge had been. The walls shifted to show what looked like moving star maps and historical records. "What I told you before was true, but it wasn't the whole truth," Zara began. "The Stellarians didn't just help create humans. We were the first humans." Tom felt his mind struggling to process this. "What?" "Long ago, my people looked just like yours. We lived on a planet you now call Mars." The walls showed images of a green and blue Mars covered in oceans and forests. "We were the first civilization in this arm of the galaxy to achieve space travel. We met the void whales, learned from them, and began to change ourselves to better survive in space." The images showed the gradual transformation. Humans slowly developing the star-marked skin, the enhanced strength, the connection to living technology. "But some of us disagreed with these changes," Zara continued. "They wanted to remain as we were originally made. They believed our original form was perfect. So we helped them settle on Earth, which we had been terraforming as a backup world. Those people became your ancestors." Tom watched the historical images with fascination. "But you said your people are dying out now. What happened?" Zara's expression darkened. Pride. Arrogance. We became so powerful that we thought we could control evolution itself. We tried to force our next evolution, to become beings of pure energy like some of the elder races we'd encountered. She waved her hand, and the images showed a devastating event. Entire cities of crystal and light going dark. It backfired. The change affected our genetic code in ways we didn't expect. We lost the ability to have male children, and our connection to our original form, to Earth humans, became crucial for our survival. Suddenly, the ship trembled. Through his connection, Tom felt its alarm. "We're being boarded," Zara said, her armor automatically expanding to full combat mode. They must have followed our quantum wake. But something was wrong. The ship wasn't just alarmed, it was afraid. Through their bond, Tom could feel that these weren't ordinary boarders. "Zara," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "The ship, it recognizes them." Zara's eyes widened. "No, it can't be." She rushed to a control panel, checking readings. "These energy signatures, they're ascended ones." Who? "The Stellarians who tried to become energy beings. The ones we thought died in the failed evolution. They didn't die. They changed into something else, something that's been hiding in the void between stars for thousands of years." The ship's walls showed the intruders, humanoid figures made of shifting light and darkness, moving through solid walls as if they weren't there. "They're not here for you," Zara realized, horror creeping into her voice. "They're here for me. All these years hunting for compatible human DNA. We weren't just trying to save our species. We were trying to reverse what they did to us." The temperature in the ship dropped dramatically. Ice crystals began forming on the walls. The void whales outside scattered, their bioluminescent bodies flashing morning patterns. Through the ship's senses, Tom felt the ascended ones approaching the bridge. Their presence was like static electricity and winter frost combined. "Tom," Zara said urgently, "the ship can't protect us both. You need to hide. If they find you, if they learn that a human has bonded with a heart ship." "I'm not leaving you," Tom said firmly, surprising himself with his conviction. The ship responded to his emotions, the walls pulsing with defensive energy. Zora looked at him with a mixture of pride and fear. "Then let me teach you one last thing about being Stellarian." She held out her hand, and energy began to dance between her fingers. "We don't just pilot living ships. We learned a few other tricks from the void whales too." The door to the bridge dissolved as three figures of light and shadow entered. They moved like smoke but felt as ancient as the stars themselves. Tom stood beside Zora, feeling the ship's power flowing through them both. He might be just a barista from Earth, but he was also, apparently, descended from space gods. And right now, those space gods needed to be reminded that humanity, in all its forms, wasn't going to give up without a fight. The first ascended one spoke, its voice like crystals chiming in a void. "The experiment ends now." Zara's response was simple. "No, it's just beginning." As energy began to fill the room and reality itself seemed to bend, Tom realized that the truth about his species' origin was just the start. The real question wasn't where humans came from, it was what they would become. The ship's consciousness merged more deeply with them both, preparing for battle. Through their shared connection, Tom felt Zora's fierce determination, and something else, a feeling that made his heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The future of two civilizations was about to be decided, and somehow, a coffee shop barista from Earth was right in the middle of it all. The battle. The ascended ones moved like living starlight, their forms rippling through the air of the bridge. Tom had thought they would attack immediately, but instead they hung back, studying him and Zara with eyes that looked like miniature galaxies. "Sister Zara Vex," the tallest one spoke, its voice echoing strangely. "You disappoint us, bringing an unmodified human to our sacred spaces." Zara stepped forward, her star-marked skin glowing brighter. "Sacred, you abandoned these spaces. You abandoned our people to chase your evolution dreams." We evolved. Another Ascended One said, its form shifting between light and shadow. We became perfect. Tom felt the hardship's disagreement through their bond. These beings weren't perfect. They were broken, trapped between states of existence. He could sense the ship's memories of them. From before their transformation, they had been Stellarian scientists, brilliant but arrogant. Perfect. Tom found himself speaking up. Then why are you so interested in human DNA? Why follow us across half the galaxy? The third Ascended One drifted closer, its form condensing until it almost looked human. It speaks, and it thinks it understands. The being turned to Zara. You haven't told it everything, have you? Zara's expression remained firm, but through their shared connection with the ship, Tom felt her anxiety spike. Tell me what? He asked. The Ascended One laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The compatibility between humans and Stellarians isn't natural. It was engineered. By us. Before our ascension, we modified Earth humans to be the perfect genetic key. Not to save our species, but to complete our evolution. You're lying, Zora said, but Tom could feel her uncertainty. Are we? The tallest Ascended One waved its hand, and the ship's walls filled with ancient data streams. We made humans to be vessels. Perfect, empty vessels that could hold our consciousness when our ascension was complete. That's why this human can bond with a hardship. We designed them for it. Tom felt sick. You created humans to be body snatchers. We created you to be our salvation, the being corrected. Our current form is unstable. We need physical bodies that can handle our enhanced consciousness. Normal Stellarians can't survive the transfer. But humans we designed specifically for this purpose. Zora moved protectively in front of Tom. It doesn't matter what you designed humans for. They've become their own species. They have their own destiny. Destiny. The Ascended Ones laughed in unison, the sound making the ship's walls vibrate. There is no destiny. Only the plan we set in motion thousands of years ago. And now, with this perfect specimen, they all turned to look at Tom. We can finally complete our work. They move as one, tendrils of light reaching for Tom. But three things happened simultaneously. First, Zara unleashed the energy she'd been gathering, creating a barrier of blue fire between them and the Ascended Ones. Second, the hardship responded to Tom's fear, its walls sprouting crystalline spikes that forced the energy beings back. And third, most surprisingly, Tom felt something wake up inside him. Something the Ascended Ones had planted in human DNA thousands of years ago, waiting for this moment. His skin began to glow with patterns similar to Zora's star marks. But these were different. More geometric, more ancient. Knowledge flooded his mind. Secrets of space and time that the Ascended Ones had encoded into human genes. What's happening to him? Zara asked, watching as Tom's eyes began to shine with the same galaxy-like light as the Ascended Ones. The key turns, the beings said in unison. The vessel awakens. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had designed humans to be perfect vessels, yes, but they hadn't considered what thousands of years of evolution and free will would do to their careful programming. Tom felt their ancient programming trying to take control, trying to empty his mind to make room for an Ascended One's consciousness. But he fought back, using everything that made him human. His memories, his feelings, his growing connection to Zara and the ship. You want to see what humans have evolved into, he said, his voice resonating with new power. Let me show you. Through his bond with the hardship, Tom reached out to the void whales swooning in space around them. The ancient creatures responded, their bioluminescent bodies glowing brighter. They had been watching humanity too, he realized. Watching and waiting. The Ascended Ones tried to retreat, but Tom held them with his newly awakened powers. You gave us the ability to be perfect vessels, but you forgot something important. He looked at Zara, drawing strength from her presence. Humans don't just contain power, we transform it. Energy began to flow from the void whales, through the ship, and into Tom. The Ascended One's programming in his DNA wasn't just accepting power now, it was changing it, making it something new. "No," the Ascended Ones cried out. "You'll destroy thousands of years of work." "I'm not destroying it," Tom said, feeling more certain with each passing moment. "I'm finishing it, just not the way you planned." The energy reached a crescendo. Tom felt like he was being torn apart and remade. Zara grabbed his hand, her own power joining with his, stabilizing him. The Heartship's consciousness wrapped around them both, protecting them as light filled the bridge. When it faded, the Ascended Ones were gone, not destroyed, but transformed. Where they had been, 3 small crystals floated in the air, each containing a galaxy-like swirl of energy. "What did you do?" Zara asked, picking up one of the crystals. Tom, his skin still glowing with geometric patterns, smiled tiredly. "Gave them what they wanted, just not how they wanted it. They wanted vessels that could contain their power. Instead, I gave them vessels that could teach them to be whole again." Through their connection, the Heartship showed them what the crystals were, living computers based on both Stellarian and human DNA. The Ascended Ones weren't trapped in them. They were being healed, relearning how to exist in the physical world. "You turned a trap thousands of years in the making into a healing device," Zara said, looking at Tom with new understanding. "Maybe this is why our species were meant to find each other again." Tom nodded, but before he could respond, the ship's alarms began blaring again. The battle with the Ascended Ones had drained their power reserves. They were drifting, defenseless, in space. And on the sensors, more ships were approaching. But these ones were different. They bore the markings of the Stellarian fleet. "Your people?" Tom asked. "Yes," Zara said, her expression concerned. "But after what we just learned about our history, I'm not sure if that's good news or bad news." The geometric patterns on Tom's skin pulsed with residual energy as the fleet drew closer. One thing was certain. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the future of both their species. And now, with his newly awakened powers and understanding, Tom was ready to face whatever came next. He looked at Zara, then at the approaching fleet. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "at least it won't be boring." The Heartship hummed in agreement, its walls shimmering with anticipation of what was to come. The choice. The Stellarian fleet surrounded them in a perfect sphere formation, their crystalline ships glowing with colors Tom had never seen before. Through the Heartship's enhanced senses, he could feel the power radiating from them. These weren't just warships, they were ancient artifacts from the height of Stellarian civilization. "Something's wrong," Zara said, studying the fleet's formation. "These are Guardian-class vessels. They're only awakened in times of extreme crisis." Tom stood beside her, the geometric patterns on his skin still pulsing faintly with power from his transformation. The 3 crystals containing the transformed Ascended Ones floated in a protective field nearby, their swirling energies casting strange shadows. A voice echoed through their ship, speaking in the musical language of the Stellarians. Zara's expression changed from concern to shock. "What is it?" Tom asked. "That's High Commander Valsaren," Zara replied. She's my mother." The communication screen activated, showing a regal Stellarian woman whose star marks formed intricate constellations across her face. Unlike Zora's warrior armor, she wore robes that seemed to be made of living light. "Daughter," Valsaren said in English, her eyes fixed on Tom. "I see you found what you were looking for. But I'm afraid you've started something far bigger than you understand." "Mother, I can explain." "There's no time," Valsaren interrupted. "The Ascended One's transformation has triggered a cascade effect. Ancient systems are awakening across the galaxy. The void whales are singing songs not heard in millennia. And..." She paused, her expression grave. "The Genesis engine is activating." "The what?" Tom asked, but he felt the Heartship's recognition of the term. Through their bond, images flashed in his mind. a massive structure hidden in the space between galaxies, built by the original Stellarians as a last resort. The Genesis engine, Valsiran explained, is what we use to create humanity. And now it's preparing to complete its original program. Zara stepped forward. What original program? To merge our species back together, her mother replied. The Ascended Ones weren't completely wrong. Humans weren't meant to be empty vessels. They were meant to be the bridge between what we were and what we could become. The engine sees what happened to those three. She gestured to the crystals, as a signal to begin the convergence. Tom felt dizzy with the implications. You're saying this engine wants to turn all humans into whatever I'm becoming? Yes, and all Stellarians too. It was designed to wait until both species had evolved to the right point. Your transformation of the Ascended Ones proved that moment has arrived. The ship's sensors suddenly lit up with new readings. Around Earth, strange energy patterns were forming. The same was happening around the Stellarian homeworld. We have perhaps 48 hours before the process begins, Valsiran said. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. Both our species will be transformed, merged into something new, something that could be either wonderful or terrible. There has to be a way to stop it, Zara insisted. There is. Valsiran's image flickered. The engine requires both human and Stellarian DNA to function. It's calibrated specifically to your genetic patterns now, Tom. If you were to connect to it, you could shut it down. But, she paused. The effort would burn out the changes happening in your body. You'd return to being fully human, losing all connection to Stellarian abilities, including your bond with the heartship. Tom felt the ship's sadness at this possibility. Over their short time together, their connection had grown deep. And if we do nothing, he asked, then both our species face forced evolution. Many would not survive the change. Those who do would become something unprecedented, neither human nor Stellarian, but a new form of life entirely. Zara turned to Tom, her expression torn. This should be your choice. It's your world at risk. Your people. They're your people too, Tom replied. You said it yourself. Humans and Stellarians were once the same species. The heartship suddenly pulsed with new information. Through their bond, it showed them a third option, dangerous, possibly impossible, but potentially worth the risk. The ship thinks we could reprogram the engine, Tom said slowly, not to stop it, but to make the transformation voluntary. Give both species the choice. That's never been done, Valsiran said. The engine wasn't designed for selective operation. Attempting to modify it could destroy it, and possibly both our worlds in the process. But it's possible. Theoretically, you would need to interface directly with the engine's core. With your new abilities and your connection to the heartship, you might be able to rewrite its base protocols. But, she looked at her daughter, you couldn't do it alone. It would require a deep mental link with a Stellarian, a permanent one. Zora met Tom's eyes. Through their shared bond with the ship, he could feel her mix of hope and fear. I would do it, she said, if you want to try. Tom looked at the crystals containing the transformed Ascended Ones. They had tried to force evolution and ended up trapped between states of existence. Now he and Zara had the chance to give both their species something precious. Choice. But he had his own choice to make first. He could stop the engine and return to his normal life, saving both species from forced evolution, but losing his connection to this new world he discovered. Let the engine run its course, forcing both species to evolve, but possibly causing massive casualties. Try to reprogram the engine, risking everything but potentially giving everyone the freedom to choose their own path. The geometric patterns on his skin pulsed brighter, resonating with the crystals. The void whales outside the ship began to sing, their ancient songs carrying through space itself. Through his bond with the ship, Tom felt Zora's presence, strong, fierce, and now somehow essential to who he was becoming. He thought about Earth, about his small life making coffee and petting his cat. He thought about the stars, about the incredible journey that had led him here. Finally, he thought about choice, the most human thing of all. Looking at the fleet of ancient ships surrounding them, at the worried face of Zora's mother on the screen, at the woman who had changed his life by walking into his coffee shop, Tom made his decision. "Well," he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "I did say I wanted my life to be more interesting." The heart-ship hummed with approval as he stepped forward to announce his choice. A choice that would change not just his life, but the course of 2 civilizations forever. The sacrifice. The Genesis engine hung in the void between galaxies like a sleeping god. From the bridge of the heart-ship, Tom could see why the ancient Stellarians had hidden it here. The structure was larger than Earth's moon, its surface covered in shifting patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Zora said softly. "The greatest achievement of our ancient civilization, and most of our people don't even know it exists." They stood together on the bridge, surrounded by the Stellarian fleet. After Tom had chosen to attempt reprogramming the engine, High Commander Val Saren had insisted on escorting them. The journey had taken 12 hours, during which time the changes in Tom's body had continued to evolve. The geometric patterns on his skin now shifted like living circuits, responding to his emotions and the energies around him. Through his enhanced connection to the heart-ship, he could sense things he never imagined possible. The songs of the void whales following them, the quantum vibrations of space itself, and most intensely, Zora's presence beside him. "The engine is scanning us," Val Saren announced from her flagship. "It recognizes your genetic pattern, Tom." But her voice trailed off with concern. Tom felt it too. The engine wasn't just scanning them. It was reaching out, trying to connect with the transformed Ascended Ones in their crystal prisons. The 3 crystals began to pulse with increasing intensity. "Something's wrong," Zora said, checking the ship's readings. "The engine's power output is spiking. It's not waiting for the 48-hour countdown." Through their bond with the heart-ship, Tom and Zora could feel the massive energies building within the engine. Images flashed through their minds, glimpses of what was happening across 2 worlds. On Earth, millions of humans were experiencing strange dreams, their DNA beginning to resonate with the engine's call. On the Stellarian homeworld, the star marks of the people were glowing in synchronized patterns. The Ascended Ones, Tom realized. Their transformation is acting like a catalyst. The engine thinks the process has already begun. Val Saren's image flickered with static. "We're detecting quantum fluctuations throughout the fleet. The engine's influence is spreading faster than we calculated. You need to dock with it now, before." Her transmission cut off as a massive energy wave pulsed from the engine. The Stellarian ships scattered like leaves in a storm, their crystalline hulls resonating with the strange power. Only the heart-ship remained steady, protected by its unique bond with Tom and Zora. "Mother," Zora called out, but there was no response. The fleet was being pushed back, forced away from the engine by waves of transformative energy. The 3 crystals containing the Ascended Ones suddenly shattered, but instead of returning to their energy forms, the beings emerged as something new. Neither human, nor Stellarian, nor pure energy, but a perfect synthesis of all 3. Their bodies were like living stained glass, geometric patterns flowing through translucent flesh. "This is what the engine wants to make of us all," one of them said, their voice harmonizing with itself. "Not vessels, not separate species, but something transcendent." "You don't have the right to make that choice for everyone," Tom said, standing his ground as the beings approached. "Choice?" Another laughed. "Evolution doesn't ask permission. Did the first fish choose to walk on land? Did the first apes choose to think abstract thoughts?" The third being raised its crystalline hands, and Tom felt the engine's power surge through him. His own transformation began to accelerate, the geometric patterns on his skin spreading faster. Beside him, Zora gasped as her star marks began to change as well. But something else was happening too. The heart-ship, responding to the danger to its bonded pilots, began to change. Its living walls flowed like liquid crystal, forming armor around Tom and Zara. Through their mental link, the ship shared its knowledge, secrets about the engine that even the Ascended Ones didn't know. "You're wrong," Zara said, her voice strong despite the transformation trying to take hold of her. "Evolution is about adaptation, about finding new ways to survive. And humans have proven that consciousness, that choice itself, can be an evolutionary advantage." Tom felt the truth of her words resonate with his newly awakened abilities. The heart ship's armor around them pulsed with power, helping them resist the engine's influence. And in that moment of clarity, he understood what they needed to do. "The ship," he said to Zara through their bond, "it's not just protecting us. It's showing us how the engine works. The void whales, they helped design it, didn't they?" Zora's eyes widened with realization. The void whales weren't just ancient observers. They were the original engineers, the ones who taught the first Stellarians how to manipulate life itself. And now, through the heart ship, they were offering their help again. The transformed Ascended Ones must have sensed what was happening. They launched themselves forward, their crystalline bodies crackling with engine-enhanced power. But they had forgotten something crucial. The heart ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a living bridge between species, just like Tom had become. As the Ascended Ones attacked, Tom and Zara moved as one. The ship's armor around them resonated with their shared consciousness, creating a field of pure possibility. Where the Ascended Ones tried to force transformation, Tom and Zara offered connection. Where they demanded evolution, the bonded pair demonstrated adaptation. The void whale's song reached a crescendo, their ancient voices carrying through space itself. The heart ship's walls became transparent, showing the massive creatures surrounding the engine, their bioluminescent bodies forming patterns that matched the geometric designs on Tom's skin. "You want transcendence?" Tom asked the Ascended Ones, his voice echoing with the void whale's song. "Let us show you what real transcendence looks like." He reached for Zora's hand. Through their touch, through their bond with the ship, through the ancient wisdom of the void whales, they began to glow with a light that was neither human nor Stellarian, nor anything that had existed before. But unlike the engine's forced evolution, this light spread gently, offering itself freely. The transformed Ascended Ones hesitated, their crystalline forms resonating with the new frequency. For the first time in millennia, they faced something they couldn't control or predict. "The engine isn't just a tool for evolution," Zara said, understanding flooding through their bond. "It's a key to unlock potential. But potential isn't meant to be forced, it's meant to be nurtured." As if in response to her words, the Genesis engine's surface began to shift. The patterns that had seemed chaotic before now aligned with the void whale's song, with the geometric lights on Tom's skin, with the star marks on Zora's body. They had one chance to make this work, one opportunity to change the destiny of two civilizations. But the power required would be enormous, and the risk. Tom looked at Zora, saw the same understanding in her eyes. This would take everything they had. It might burn out their connection to the ship, to each other, to the new abilities they had gained. The choice had to be made now. Through their bond, they shared a single thought. Some things were worth sacrificing everything for. Together, they reached out toward the Genesis engine, their combined consciousness carrying the wisdom of humanity, the power of the Stellarians, and the ancient knowledge of the void whales. The engine's surface opened like a blooming flower of light, ready to receive them, ready to be transformed from a tool of forced evolution into something entirely new. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance as Tom and Zara took the final step forward, their forms beginning to merge with the engine's light. The greatest sacrifice often came not in dying for a cause, but in being willing to change everything you are to save others. The new beginning. Light. Endless, infinite light. Tom couldn't tell where his consciousness ended and Zora's began. They had merged completely with the Genesis engine, their combined essence spreading through its vast systems, like water flowing through ancient channels. The Heartship's presence was there too, acting as an anchor to their shared humanity, even as they touched powers that threatened to overwhelm them both. Through the engine's sensors, they could see everything. Earth, spinning peacefully in its orbit, its people still dreaming of stars. The Stellarian homeworld, its crystal cities glowing with anticipation. The transformed Ascended Ones, watching in awe as two beings they had considered inferior reshaped their greatest creation. And the Void Whales, their massive forms creating a living sphere around the engine, their songs weaving reality itself into new patterns. Beautiful, isn't it? Zara's thoughts merged with his. All of existence, all possibilities, right at our fingertips. The engine's systems responded to their presence, unveiling its deepest secrets. They saw the truth of its creation, not just a tool for evolution, but a bridge between multiple futures. The ancient Stellarians hadn't just wanted to change their species, they had wanted to create a way for life itself to choose its path. The Ascended Ones never understood. Tom realized, his consciousness expanding through the engine's matrix. The engine wasn't meant to force evolution. It was meant to offer possibilities. Through their expanded awareness, they could feel the three transformed beings approaching the engine's core, drawn by the incredible energies being unleashed. "You'll destroy everything," one of them called out. The engine wasn't designed to be used this way, but they were wrong. Through their connection with the Heartship, Tom and Zara could access the original blueprints, the true purpose hidden in the engine's quantum DNA. The Void Whales had helped design it not as a weapon of forced change, but as a gift of potential. Together, they began the reprogramming. It wasn't just about changing code. They were reshaping the very concept of transformation. The geometric patterns that had covered Tom's skin now spread through the engine's systems, merging with Zora's star marks to create new forms of energy transfer. Across both worlds, people began to wake from their strange dreams. But instead of being forced to change, they each felt a gentle offering, a glimpse of what they could become, if they chose to. The transformed Ascended Ones watched in amazement as their own crystalline forms began to shift, responding to the new patterns. This is impossible," one whispered. "You're giving them a choice." More than that, Zara's consciousness pulsed through the engine. "We're giving them understanding." Through their expanded awareness, Tom and Zara began to broadcast not just possibilities, but knowledge. Every human, every Stellarian, could now see the truth of their shared heritage. They could understand the different paths of evolution available to them, the potential that lay dormant in their genes. But the power required was immense. Tom could feel their individual consciousnesses beginning to fade, being drawn deeper into the engine systems. "We're losing ourselves," he realized, reaching for Zara's essence. "Then let's leave something behind," she responded, her love and determination flowing through their bond. Using the last of their individual strength, they began their final act of creation. Together, they rewrote the engine's core purpose. No longer would it be a tool of transformation. Instead, it would become a library of potential, a repository of all possible evolutionary paths that any being could access and understand. The Void Whales sang louder, their ancient voices guiding the change. The Heartship's consciousness wrapped around its bonded pilots, trying to protect them from being completely absorbed into the engine. Across space, High Commander Val Saren and the Stellarian fleet watched in awe as the engine's surface transformed. The chaotic patterns resolved into a new form, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with gentle light, offering wisdom rather than demanding change. But Tom and Zara were fading, their individual selves dissolving into the engine's matrix. Just before consciousness fled entirely, they felt something unexpected. The Heartship, making one final desperate attempt to save them. The living vessel plunged its consciousness into the engine's core, using its unique biology to create a bridge back to physical form. Through their fading awareness, they felt the Void Whales joining the effort, their ancient power helping to pull two souls back from the brink of transcendence. Pain. Blessed, physical pain. Tom gasped as his consciousness cleansed back into his body. He was lying on the Hardship's bridge, its walls pulsing with exhausted but triumphant light. Beside him, Zara stirred, her star marks glowing softly. They were changed. The geometric patterns remained on Tom's skin, but now they were a part of him, a reminder of their journey. Zara's star marks had evolved too, showing traces of the same geometric patterns, marking their shared transformation. Through the ship's windows, they could see the Genesis engine, now transformed into a massive library of evolutionary knowledge. The transformed Ascended Ones stood nearby, their crystalline forms somehow softer, more natural. "You've done the impossible," one of them said, genuine respect in their harmonic voice. "You've given both our species true freedom." Valsaren's voice came through the ship's communications, thick with emotion. "The reports are coming in from both worlds. Everyone understands now. They can see the possibilities, make their own choices." Tom looked at Zara, reaching for her hand. Their bond had changed too. No longer just through the ship, but something deeper, permanent. They had touched infinity together, and come back changed but whole. "What happens now?" he asked. Zara smiled, squeezing his hand. Now we help build the bridge between our worlds. Show everyone that evolution isn't just about changing. It's about growing, about choosing who you want to become." The void whales sang in approval, their bodies creating rivers of light through space. The Hardship hummed happily, its systems adapting to its pilot's new state of being. Tom thought about his coffee shop on Earth, about how impossibly far he'd come. But he wasn't just a barista anymore, just as Zara wasn't just a warrior. They had become something new, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to together. "You know," he said, watching as the transformed engine began its new role as a beacon of knowledge for two civilizations, "I never did get to finish my shift at the coffee shop." Zara laughed, the sound carrying all the joy and love that had brought them through their impossible journey. "Well," she said, her eyes twinkling with both stars and geometric light, "I hear the coffee on Stellaris Prime is terrible. Maybe it's time to introduce your world's greatest gift to mine." The Hardship's engines hummed to life, ready to carry them wherever they chose to go. Above them, the void whales danced through space, celebrating a future where evolution and choice walked hand in hand. It wasn't an ending. It was truly a new beginning. For Tom and Zara, for humans and Stellarians, for life itself. And as they set course for their next adventure, they carried with them the greatest lesson of all. The most powerful changes aren't the ones forced upon us, but the ones we choose to embrace together. The universe stretched out before them, infinite in its possibilities, waiting to see what they would choose to become next.